Hey everyone, it's Tdawg here at Tdawg Trading. Thanks for making me a part of your day. I really appreciate the support. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through how I find the stocks that I trade. What are the tools that I use? How do I identify which ones that I think provide the opportunities needed to be able to make and profit from stock trading? So let's jump right into it. I have 5 types of stocks that I identify and I put on my watch list. The number one is leading gappers. I use a tool, a scanner. I think a lot of people refer to them as different types of scanners. But one of the first things that I do in the morning is look at the stocks that have been gapping up the highest. I use a tool, as you can see here, called Trade Ideas. This identifies the list of stocks that are gapping up the most from the previous day close. One of the key things that I look for when I'm looking at gappers is that I'm looking at the float of the stock. That's how many shares that are available to be traded on the stock market. That's a key element. The lower the float, the more it's gapping, the more typically the more volatility that it's going to have. It has an opportunity of less volume making a bigger impact. And so when you have a really high volume, which is created by just the application of it gapping, it can be really advantageous. And so here with Trade Ideas, this is a quick and easy way for me to identify these particular stocks. Now, out of the top gappers, it really kind of depends. Sometimes there might be 2, maybe 3 stocks that meet the criteria that I'm looking for when I'm looking at the gappers. Usually, I'll be honest, typically the focus will end up being on one. There's going to be one that's going to have, in most cases, the best opportunity. The second way that I will find stocks to trade is actually from continuation plays. Now, I get continuation plays in a couple of ways. Actually, I have 3 very specific ways that I look at continuation plays. First off, let's say today is Monday, and I identify gappers, on the group, if I add those stocks to my watch list, in most cases, I will keep them on my watch list for probably 2 or 3 days. Now, there might be reasons why I might remove them from the watch list. Maybe volume decreases by quite a bit, or a certain reason. But at the end of the day, continuation plays are that when you have a gapper that has high relative volume, and relative volume is simply, when a stock is trading at a much higher volume than it typically trades at. There are some stocks that trade at, with 100,000 or 200,000 shares a day that end up trading for 20 and 30 million. There are stocks that only have 10 million shares available and that will trade for 50 and 60 million shares in a day. So literally the company changes hands 5 or 6 times in the period of a trading day. And that's really high relative volume, which causes the volatility that people like myself use to be able to find opportunities to be able to trade. Another way that I'll look at continuation plays are actually from a service that I belong to. At 1215 Day Trading, it's one of the services that I actually pay for. The gentleman that supports that program and that supports that service, he has a very defined set of criteria and that he looks for, and most of those plays are continuation plays. The nice thing about the 1215 service is that when he puts it on his list, when he puts it on his watch list, he identifies a very specific entry, a very specific stop, and what a target range is. And also, it's not just as simple as that if it hits an entry that you go ahead and enter. There's very specific criteria that the stock has to do and things that it has to show. And there's usually, sometimes 3, sometimes up to 4 methods to be able to enter in on that stock. Another way that I find continuation plays is actually from another YouTube channel. You've might those in the trading world of many of you have heard of Clay Trader at claytrader.com. Well, he has a YouTube channel, and every afternoon, usually the last half hour of the day, he puts together a video of his top 10 list. Now, when he puts together his video, he always has Tesla. He almost always has AMC. Neo is a very common element. But he also has 2 or 3 typically small cap stocks that have been volatile that day, or they are playing in a continuation. And so some of the nice things is that he uses the 30-minute time frame, and I'll always watch his videos at the end of the day because I'll actually look at those opportunities, because usually when he does his analysis, he looks at what the next opportunity is for the breakout, so where the breakout line is, but he also identifies an area of support. And I find myself, probably once a week, I will find one of his top 10 items. I will find an opportunity for it to hit, one of those support elements, and with a pretty tight stop, I might take a trade based on it hitting one of those support elements. And I'll be honest, I can't think of too many times when I did that ended up not being a successful trade. Quite frequently. Now there are times when I've had to stop out. That's part of trading. Is that you put things on a watch list, and they seem to do a certain thing, and then there's an opportunity for it to do something else, and it doesn't end up doing it. So you end up having to either stop out or it does what you're expecting, and you make some some money on that particular trade. All right, so that's so the first one was the leading gappers. The second one was the continuation plays. The third method that I use is I belong to a few chat rooms. My 1215 service has its own chat room, has some really great individuals. And if you're interested in the 1215 service, I'll have a link in my description, where you can kind of take a look at that. It's very affordable. I think it's the best deal out there. He has over a 70% win rate. So when his stocks trigger an entry, 70% of the time they win, and that's a great win rate. If you have that kind of win rate, even with a 1-to-1 or a risk to reward ratio, and most of the time you'll get 2-to-1 or at least 1.5-to-1 on the stocks on his list. But a 70% win rate's a really good win rate. But again, being a part of a chat room, there are times when others are just looking at different stocks in different ways, and people in the chat room will call out some, either a stock that's moving or different, or things that they've been looking at, and now it's doing something specific, and it'll get called out, and I'll go in and I'll take a look at that. And there are times when I'll take trades because of what the research that I do once I start looking at that stock. There's another chat room, Relentless Trading, the Relentless Trader. He has a chat room on the Discord. I'll put that link in my description as well. It is totally free of charge. It's a great community of people. I definitely highly recommend that. And again, I belong to a few other chat rooms, but at the end of the day, I think, just to be a part of a community. Day trading, typically you sit by yourself, you got all these computers and everything around you, but, being a part of a trading community really definitely helps I think the psychological aspect of trading. And so I highly recommend to make sure you surround yourself, because what I find is when I talk to people that I know in real life, in the real world, right, they don't always understand day trading. They don't always understand, they think it's either gambling, or they think it's they just don't understand it well enough. And being around people that and communicating with people that kind of understand what you're feeling and how you are handling things, is definitely helpful. So the fourth way that I find stocks is actually through high of day momentum. So before I kind of showed you an example of the leading gappers and the tool, the Trade Ideas tool that I use to be able to identify that. Well, also throughout the day, that this same tool identifies stocks that are reaching their high of day, that meet certain criteria. They're also part of the scanners the ability to see surge up and surge down in volume. So if there's a really high percentage surge up in a 1 minute time frame, it'll pop up on the radar and it'll notify me that there's been a surge some way or another on that particular stock. So that's another mechanism that I'll utilize to be able to identify stocks that I trade. And again, those are stocks that aren't on my watch list. They're stocks that, as sometimes with the Chatroom Callouts, there's stocks that will pop up throughout the day, maybe because they have news in the middle of the day, or maybe, who knows, so that sometimes sometimes it's very weird when, stocks do some of the things that they do. But it's definitely helpful to have access to scanners that will, help identify when those opportunities happen. And the final thing, or the final way that I will look for stocks to trade, is that I have a list of large caps. I don't do a lot of large cap stock trading, but I'm doing more. I'm getting more interested. And I have a very specific list of stocks in the large cap world that I trade. One of them is the SPY. The SPY is the S&P 500 ETF. That I can trade options on, but it's also a very good measurement of what's happening in the market. So SPY is one of those large cap elements that I'll look at. Tesla is another one. It has a lot of volatility. It can move very quickly. And so when there is volatility and there is a lot of movement, there are a lot of opportunities. Another one is AMD. Love the company, love the stock. It has a lot of, it's got quite a bit of a following, and it has a lot of fluctuation. I saw it, sometimes it'll make 5, 6, even 7-point moves throughout the day. And because it's in that $95 to $110 per share price range, it makes it more affordable than certain things like the SPY, when I want to take shares versus trading the options. But I do take options trades on AMD. The other stock that I look at is Apple. Apple's another good stock that has a lot of movement throughout the day. And, those are the primary ones. I'll also look at the Qs. We talked about the SPY ETF, but the QQQ, I'll definitely look at the Qs. There's sometimes some opportunities to be able to take place there. And then there's kind of two other stocks that I'll look at. I'll look at Amazon and I'll look at Nvidia. Those are two other stocks that I'll, they wouldn't call them on my primary large cap stock price list or item list, but they are sometimes stocks that do come into the picture, that I'll take a look at. So anyway, those are the 5 mechanisms or the 5 ways that I will find stocks to be able to trade throughout my trading day. And so I hope this was helpful. I hope this was beneficial. If you're interested in this type of day trading content, I highly recommend you click the subscribe button so that you get notifications when I have a new video out. If this was any at all help to you, I'd ask that you press the like button. It really helps with the algorithm. Anyway, have a great day, and I definitely appreciate the time.